It was an hour drive to the course, so Everett picked up Kenny right on time at 7 a.m. Which course was thus far being kept a secret. Everett had promised his new friend, Kenny Dorn, something truly special. 18 holes like he had never shot before. Which Kenny thought was bullshit, of course. But it didn't matter. Kenny loved the game, and he loved playing at as many new and different courses as he could find. By this point, after living in the area for almost a decade, he thought he had played them all. He was almost right. "You mind if I blaze this?" he asked Everett, brandishing a long, luxuriously thick joint. He sparked it and then offered to the driver, who politely declined. "None for me. I need my wits about me. Yeah, this always helps me relax before play." Everett laughed, but it was a fake laugh. "Well, then maybe I should try it out too. Follow in the footsteps of greatness." The main roads were behind them at this point. They were deep in the boonies. Kenny brushed off the compliment. Come on, man. I'm no better than you. Any given day, either one of us could win. Don't we always say that?" Everett pulled out a card with a barcode on it and hung it from the rear view mirror. "Kenny, we've known each other for 6 months. In that time, you've taken me for over $5,000. Kenny coughed and laughed at the same time. "Everett, that's pocket change, isn't it?" "True, it is. But I've only beaten you twice in 6 months. And both times that I won, the following game you took me for money or worse. And please, don't disrespect me by denying it." Kenny looked out the window, puffed his joint. "You only ever win by 1 or 2 strokes. It's always close. But here's the thing, Kenny Scratch. It's never really close, is it?" Kenny tossed the roach out the window. The car began to slow. "Well, Everett, it's, he hemmed and hawed for a moment. And then Everett stopped the car and cut him off good-naturedly. "It's fine, buddy. It's actually why you're here. I like you. I like golfing with you. But I want to talk to you about something very important." Kenny was still listening, but now his jaw was hanging open. Literally, his mouth was agape as he read the very small, very classy sign located next to the armed guard's hut that led to the course. It said, "Ophidia Golf and Country Club, established 1778. "Holy smokes," Kenny whispered, and suddenly he wished he hadn't ripped through that whole joint so fast. He could have used a little more right now, trying to process this. The Ophidia was the most exclusive golf club in the world. So exclusive that the rules included members not being able to discuss the club or even claiming to be a member in public. There was a 15-year waiting list, and that was if you had enough letters of support from other members, and you had the enormous annual and monthly fees. It made Augusta look like Bushwood. Everett said, "You understand that a non-member coming here, even once, to play around is very, very rare. Kenny said, I understand the magnitude of this, Everett. Kenny, anything you see or hear past these gates never gets mentioned outside of the gates. Ever. Not even to me. Everett, I stand in the presence of golf legend and am suitably humbled. Man to man, you have my word. They held each other's gaze for a moment, and then Everett nodded, and they drove forward. Two heavily armed men tipped their hats and opened the gate. They entered the grounds of the Ophidia, and Everett started to explain to Kenny the occult history of golf. Drinking whiskey in the kitchen and telling scary stories around the fire. Music, monsters, and mayhem, killers, cannibals, and cults, fearful fiction and furious fact, tall tales, and terrible truths. This is a scary home companion. They stood at the tee for the first hole. Behind them, the Ophidia clubhouse sprawled out like a painted horizon. It was a vast array of interconnected structures that had been built slowly over the last 2.5 centuries. Kenny was not allowed inside, which didn't bother him in the slightest, because he had been dumbstruck by the course ahead of him. Long and lean, flanked on both sides by thick stands of trees, this fairway was perfect. Verdant grass of dazzling green was clipped perfectly buzz-cut short. The first hole angled gently left before hitting the dogleg right 215 yards out. It wasn't anything extravagant or showy, but it was utter perfection. Every course has its own energy to it. Sometimes it took Kenny a few rounds to dial into that energy, but here he felt it right away. The gods of golf were strong in this hallowed ground. Never before had he felt more welcome, more at the right place at the right time than he did here, standing in this first tee box. And it wasn't because of the club or its members or Everett. It was because of the course itself. It welcomed him. "The honors, sir," he said to Everett, and backed away. The senior man found his swing, then stepped up to the ball and crushed it. It was a high, drawing iron shot, and it landed squarely at the start of the dogleg. Kenny placed his tee. "Good shot." Quickly, Everett scrawled something down on a small notepad from his breast pocket. He tore out the page, folded it up, and then handed it to Kenny. "Hold on to this. After this hole, I want you to read it, okay?" "What is this, a magic trick?" "Kenny, I need you to trust me. This is a very big deal, you being here. The Ophidia isn't just a club. It's something more, and membership carries rich rewards. I'm putting a lot of trust in you by bringing you here, and in return, you have to put a little trust in me. I have a lot that I want to discuss with you." Kenny nodded, very impatient, and then he refound his center. His shot was low and direct, seemingly never more than 20 feet off the ground, until it finally rolled to a gentle stop a few feet left of Everett's ball. A few well-placed iron shots over a crescent-shaped bunker fronting the green found them both safely on in two and putting. Just a few minutes ago, Kenny had been dazzled by the colors of the pristinely manicured fairways. And now he saw a putting green so lush and dense and viridescent that it made the fairway look bleak and gray. Kenny missed his putt for birdie and tapped in for 4. Everett made par after a stress-free 2-putt. They walked to the next hole, carrying their own bags. Kenny felt the gentle breeze pushing at his back, running its fingers through his mussed hair. I gotta say, Everett, I like this. This feels like real golf. Like old country golf, you know what I mean? No carts, no caddies, no bullshit. Everett nodded. More than you know. Okay, look at that note that I wrote you. It read, "You will stay just behind me on the fairway. You will miss the putt." Kenny looked at his friend. Well, acquaintance, really. Everett was a golf buddy. Off course, Kenny knew next to nothing about this guy. Something that he was just starting to realize. "What's this?" he asked. "Just to get you here, I had to vet you for the club. So we know who you are. I mean, who you really are. Kenny Dorn, called Kenny Scratch, the best pickup golfer that anyone ever saw. A hustler, an ace who hides in with the rich pricks and takes them for nickels and dimes, not because he needs the money, just because he likes to take them. We know you took Herman Gentry for the Cadillac he was given for his birthday. You somehow beat Judge Longfellow so bad that he got your pot dealer out of juvie. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, but didn't you win your wife in a match?" Shh. Listen. I respect your hustle. But what I'm saying is that you have nothing to gain by holding back here today. All that we know about you is that no one knows how good you really are because you never play to set records. You always play to win by a stroke. Today, I want you to play. I need you to play. There's a lot riding on it. They were at the second tee now, but Kenny was still holding his bag in front of him, unsure what was happening. "What if I told you that we are considering you for membership at the Ophidia?" I'd laugh, man. I'd laugh, not out of disrespect, but because, A, no way Jose would a place like this let a guy like me in. B, even if they did, I couldn't afford it. And C, you can't win a human being in a wager, Everett. The story about my lovely wife has been wildly exaggerated. Club fees are not exactly what people think they are here, Kenny. And the Ophidians, we can be very generous to the worthy. We did all this research on you because we're interested. We like you, Kenny. And we kind of need you. So we had to get you out here so that we could really get to know you. So, okay, I get that. But what do you need from me? We'll get to that in time. Let's tee off. You have the honors. No, you took the hole. You have the honors, Kenny said. Then he saw the way that Everett was looking at him and stepped into the tee box. This was a 555-yard par 5 with a blind green set at the top of a gently rising fairway. Kenny could barely see the top of the flag. It was blowing away from them. He used his 3-wood to blast a shot that landed near the 300-yard mark and then rolled up towards the top of the rise. He ended up with an eagle on the hole, and Everett made bogey 3 shots after his partner had finished. Okay, Everett, if you guys are getting to know me, it should cut both ways, right? Tell me about the Ophidia. What are you guys all about? We're an old club, Kenny. We go way back. Oh yeah, I saw that on your sign. No, long before that. The club, what it stands for, comes from the old country. That date is just when this course was built. The old country, you mean Scotland? Everett nodded. He fished around inside his bag and pulled out a club much shorter than the others. It was crooked, knotted. Kenny realized it was an antique hand-carved hardwood golf club. Have you ever heard of a Sabbath stick? The Church of Scotland cracked down hard on golfing on the Sabbath for quite some time. It was forbidden to play on Sundays. Golfers didn't like that, so they started to modify their walking sticks into makeshift clubs. They would make a club face that fit right into the palm of their hand so that they could walk the countryside like anyone else out for a Sunday stroll. And then, when the coast was clear, you flip the stick around into a club and you play a few strokes. Kenny marveled at this stick. It was much heavier than it looked and warm to the touch. But why did the Church of Scotland crack down in the first place? Witches, Kenny. Warlocks. Black magic societies. Servants of the Serpent. Children of Leviathan. The church believed the practitioners of the dark arts were gathering on the holy Sabbath to host their own infernal meetings. And they had the audacity to do it in broad daylight by pretending to be golfers and disguising their wands as golf clubs. Kenny handed the stick back to Everett, but felt himself immediately wanting to snatch it back into his own hands. In other words, Kenny said, biting back his frustration, people were disguising their clubs as sticks to sidestep a rule due to warlocks disguising their wands as clubs. Everett put the Sabbath stick back in the bag. That's right, Kenny. But the church was wrong. They thought we were using the game of golf as a disguise for black mass. We weren't. The game of golf itself is the black mass, Kenny. Golf started out as nothing more than an occult ritual, a celebration of the Ophidian. But it became a lot more than that, because, as luck had it, golf ended up being the best game that was ever invented. The honors go to you, sir. What would you think about bringing your wife out here sometime, Kenny? Kenny tightened up. His club head wavered midair, but he never looked up from the ball. You know, I don't think so, Everett. I prefer to keep my home life and my golf life separate. Now, if you don't mind. He focused. He swung. He connected. And he felt that lightning bolt jolt arc through his body as his eyes, his head, his neck, his shoulders, his spine, his arms and wrists and hands and fingers and toes and calves and knees and thighs and waist, as everything connected in this pure moment of perfection. And he smashed the fuck out of that Titleist for a 325-yard drive. Kenny was not a man who ever cut loose, and he was cutting loose. It was a round that no one would ever see, ever know about, and he was able to really, for once, do his best. If the club knew everything about him anyway, why not show them the true game of Kenny Scratch, who was a man who lived for the game? His passion is actually what had stopped him from going pro, what kept him from going after big money scores. It's also what kept him from playing to his full potential. All Kenny Dorn wanted to do was to play golf. The elegant simplicity and unlimited complexity of the game was his only pursuit. Fame, TV cameras, money, pride, these were all things that stood in the way of golf. Sure, he made bets, he won money from people. He felt that a modest wager was the best way to ensure fully engaged play from his competition. Too small of a bet was not enough consequence to bring out the competitive instinct in people. On the other hand, too large of a wager might cause a player to become nervous and not play their best. Kenny always wanted to play someone at their best. Today was very different from any day in his life. Today, he was not playing to beat a person. He was playing to beat the course. He had no idea what the course record was, but he was set on obliterating it by at least 3 strokes on his first round ever playing there. On the 4th hole, he eagled with a chip shot from 45 yards out. On the 5th hole, he played the lean on a long green to drop a birdie putt from 22 feet. Everett had stopped talking, which was fine because Kenny had long since tuned him out. And the man, regardless of whatever sinister agenda he might have had that day, had become entranced by Kenny's masterful performance. They walked over the crest to the tee of the 9th hole. It's beautiful, Kenny said to himself, to the gods of golf. 162 yards dead ahead, a slightly downhill slope cautiously led to the edge of a small lake. Within the center of the placid black water was a brilliantly green and round putting surface. He didn't want to stand and gawk too long. The distracting beauty of this course was its weapon. He could feel the course playing him even as he played it. A well-struck 8-iron saw the ball roll swiftly past the hole and come to a rest inches from the water's edge. God damn it, Kenny snarled, furious with this shot. And it felt wrong. He sensed that immediately. He wasn't a man who got mad at an errant shot. Where had that anger bubbled up from? Everett missed the green by 3 feet, and the black water ate his ball without causing a ripple. It wasn't until they walked to the edge of the water hazard that Kenny realized there wasn't a land bridge over to the green. It was literally an island unto itself. "Follow me, Kenny." Everett stripped off his shoes and his socks. The water was only a foot deep. Everett rolled up his pant legs and started to trudge slowly towards the green. After a moment, Kenny followed him. When in Rome, right? The mud under the surface of the lake was warm. Too warm, like human body temperature warm. "Can you feel it?" Everett asked him. "The greens here, they're sacred, Kenny. Just like they were in the old country, because we followed the rules. When you follow the rules, it takes years to develop a hole. Decades to build an entire course. And we have 2 courses here. Third one, it's almost finished. And we started that one in 1969. Kenny approached the green. Oddly enough, he saw Everett's ball perched on the edge of the grass, right at the water line. The lake had no current, and the ball had landed feet away, and yet here it was. Kenny felt another surge of anger coming on. This isn't fair. The course was cheating for Everett. And as soon as that thought crossed his mind, Kenny realized how insane that was. Everett continued. "All of our greens are consecrated with sacrifice. This gives them, in essence, a life, a connection to the ley lines they are built upon. They're like psychic magnets, Kenny. They soak up all the rage and frustration that people feel on impossible holes like this one, and they amplify it." Kenny stood on the green. He felt the warmth ooze up through the bottoms of his bare feet into the crisscross of blood vessels in his legs. It was like he had injected drugs between his toes, and that feeling was coursing up slowly through the rest of his body. He pointed at Everett's ball with his putter, and then pointed at Everett. "What is that?" "It's a reward for faithful service," Everett said, stepping onto the green. "And you're pissed off about it, aren't you?" The course is a pattern etched into the earth, Kenny. You know this. Every course is its own rune, its own living serpent. And the greens are the pressure points. All those other courses that you've played, they're all bullshit. They're just echoes of copies of imitations of the real thing, of a course like this one. The Ophidian lives here under this hallowed ground. You can feel it. You can feel his power, can't you? Each part of the course is different. And this green, well, this green eats your frustration. Although Everett's diatribe was, of course, pure madness, for some reason, Kenny still felt the words to be true. because he wasn't angry. He wasn't frustrated. He was about to birdie on a par 3 impossibility. And the anger, the feelings, the rage was another trick of the course. Try and distract him from that. So he took a few deep breaths, flexed his toes into the soft grass, and drained the tricky 12-footer for birdie. And immediately, the frustration disappeared. All praise the gods of golf, Kenny said, joking. There is only one, Everett said, not at all joking. Through the entire back nine, Everett gave a running monologue in between all of Kenny's shots. Kenny did his best to tune it out and stay laser focused on the course, which was easily the most challenging course he had ever played. But maybe that's why he was enjoying himself so goddamn much. The 10th green was fiercely guarded by undulating slopes that fed away from the green surface on every side. Kenny was playing the angles in his head while Everett talked. Have you noticed the wind, Kenny? I'm sure you have. At the Ophidia, no matter which hole you play, the wind will always be at your back. And no matter when you play, the sun will never be in your eyes. You know why? Old world craftsmanship, Kenny. You know, the first golf courses weren't designed by human hands. They tap into something much older, and that's what you're feeling here. On the 12th tee, there was a large mound that divided the double fairway. It gathered all of Kenny's attention as he weighed the options on the best way to attack it. They said that St. Patrick drove the Serpents out of Ireland. You've heard that, right? But that was never meant to be literal. He drove the Ophidians out of Ireland. It's not a period of our history that we're particularly proud of, Kenny, but I think you'll agree, if you ignore your weaknesses, then your game never improves. At the edge of the maze of bunkers surrounding the flag on the 13th, Everett was still going strong. Originally, the greens were all raised up several feet above the fairway because they were built on burial mounds. The hole would usually be the mouth of a skull. Over time, we evolved, of course. We realized the burial mounds weren't important, that it was the constitution of the soil. Blood, bones, all the essential fats and oils of the human body, they all have a tremendous impact on the earth, Kenny, and what grows from it. He was stymied by the 16th, which seemed to be a dog leg that hooked around and inward, like the entryway to a downward spiral. Of course, we were never truly driven out of the old country. Remember that. We left of our own accord. America was supposed to be the land of opportunity for all religions, so we came here for a new start, and we found it. The divisions of class and race just made things a whole lot easier to get what we needed. In the old country, we were constantly watched by the church and the government, but once we got here, no one cared. As we always have. The one who slumbers under our feet takes sustenance from our worship and our sacrifice. We carve his likeness into the ground and fill it with blood and anger. We pursue perfection and fall short. And he feeds on that failure, do you see? The father of murder, the poisoned soul of the world, the shunned, Leviathan, Damballa, he who crawls beneath us, Suong Kuong, the Ophidian. As they walked towards the 18th tee, Kenny thought, and not for the first time, that all of this batshit insanity Everett had been saying didn't feel so insane. Somehow, it felt right. It felt like truth. Maybe it was the pulse in his wrists and his hands that was perfectly in sync with the throb he still felt through his feet. Kenny had never put his shoes back on after that water hazard on 9. He left them where they lay, at the side of the lake, because he didn't want anything in between him and the course. This wonderful, exhilarating course. They stopped at a short, thin tee box that overlooked a cemetery. Everett explained, "These are all former members of good standing. They lived and died for the Ophidian, and now they rest eternal, ringed around the head of the snake god." Kenny searched the landscape, the hundreds of gravestones and dozens of crypts and tombs, looking for a flag or a flash of green. But there was nothing. "Where's the hole?" he asked. Everett shrugged. "It's hard to say. It moves. Listen to the course. It'll guide you." Kenny drew his 3-iron. The wind tickled the back of his neck. And he replaced it, taking out the 4. He teed up, still unsure of where he needed to hit, so he scanned the tombstones yet again, and this time he saw something. Atop one of the crypts was the statue of a woman pointing up and away. She had a serpent coiled around her wrist. Kenny felt the pulse of the ground, the touch of the wind, and he knew that this was the way. He teed off. The ball arced and faded gently right, following the direction of the statue's guidance. Kenny stepped out of the box. "Go ahead, man." Everett shook his head. "This is your game, Kenny. I stopped playing several holes back. You just didn't notice." Together, they walked through the maze of grave markers. Even though he had never been here before, Kenny led the way. He was tracing the path of his ball and felt like he knew exactly where he was going. The green was not on the other side of the cemetery, but dead in the center of it. This entire necropolis had been built around an impossibly small, teardrop-shaped green, ringed with concentric circles of the dead. Everett stayed silent as Kenny tapped in for par. He picked up the ball. "How'd I do?" "Wonderfully." Everett was smiling. You set the club record by 6 strokes. Kenny was smiling too. He felt electric. He didn't want to put his club back in the bag. The iron felt like Mjolnir in his hand. Isn't it amazing, this feeling? Everett hissed. Don't you want more of it? Kenny nodded. It feels like what golf should be. Pure, unspoiled. That's right, Kenny. It is. This is the game in its most raw, primal form. Why, though, Everett? Why me? Everett looked away, a little chagrined. We are not the only club, Kenny. There are others. One of them, well, we play a skins game with them every year, and we have for the last 211 years. We've lost the last 3 games, and it can't happen again. What are the stakes? It's a skins game, Kenny. It's exactly what it sounds like. And we need someone special. We need you, Kenny Scratch. The Ophidian needs you. Join us. Give us your talents, and you can stay among us. We will accept you into the Ophidia. Really? Kenny was at a loss for words, because the only thing that he could think about was going back to the first tee and starting all over, playing down the spine of what felt like a living, breathing thing, something serpentine and ancient. Yes, of course, yes, I want this, but I can't afford the cost. I've heard. Everett shushed him. You've heard what we wanted you to hear, Kenny. I've already said that club fees aren't what you think they are. Remember how I told you about finishing up our new course? We need something special to christen the 18th green there. A screaming sacrifice, bled out, dressed, and buried at the hands of the one they love the most. Put them under the green, to feed it, to anchor it. The Ophidian. Kenny, let me ask you again. What would you think about bringing your wife out here sometime? Thank you for listening to another episode of A Scary Home Companion. Were you aware that there has never, before now, been an expose on the dark side of golf? I didn't have enough time to cover it all, of course. We haven't even discussed the skins game in any detail, but it's a good start. If you're a new listener and eager for more stories like this, please let me know. To my knowledge, the audience for golf horror consists of one guy. So if you're out there and you want more, holla at your boy. You can connect with the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but that's got to end soon. Twitter drives me nuts. Better yet, write the show directly at a scary home companion at gmail.com. It helps us out to subscribe to the show on whatever app or platform you listen, or leave a review for the show. You can also join the Patreon, where you get access to exclusive videos and minisodes and full episodes. You get scripts, post-mortem analysis videos, hot nudes, and so much more. Check it out, throw the show a few bucks. Sponsor the domestic evil that we call a scary home companion. Jeff Davidson served as producer, editor, script doctor, and golf consultant for this episode. Jeff, this one's for you, bud. And it counts as your birthday and Christmas. Music this time around is by Loco with Lockdown City, Trailer Bride with Too Many Snakes, Punk Rock Opera with The Road, and finishing us off, Profan and Sacrificing to the Serpent God. And as always, Chelsea Oxendine with the theme music.